I'm Cindy Lee, the instructor of this course in Intercultural Business Communication. Welcome you to join us. After we study the cultural value system, today we are going to look at business case. And the theme of today's case is initial contact across cultures. This is our content page today. So first, we'll study the case. The case is a real story, but of course we alter the names of people in the story. And the second part will be a learning point. We are going to analyze what happened in this case, and then there will be check points. Okay. In today's case, we will see business professionals from two countries. One is from USA, the other one is from Colombia. And I believe most of us are very familiar with American culture. So today we are going to briefly look at the profile of Colombia. And the business theme here is exploring a new market. So this story is about an American business professional tries to explore a new market in Colombia. Okay, so now let's first look at where Colombia is. So Colombia is in South America, and in South America, so in this part, this is Colombia, and Bogota is their capital. So for every one of us in the future or very soon, if you are going to visit a new country or you want to do business in a country where you have never been to before, or you're going to receive a guest from a country that you are not familiar, what you can do? What you can do is search the information about this country. So here we recommend the Wikipedia and recommend you the BBC.com news, their world country profile. So these two websites are very useful. You can find the very best information and overview of the countries and geography and countries and history and culture. So please just have a very basic concept about the country. Okay, so this is a very beautiful picture of Bogota, the capital of Colombia. Now, let's begin to study this case, initial contact. So the story starts like this. A bank in Bogota, Colombia, decided to improve its computer communication system. The top sales manager of a young but successful communication company in the USA wanted to get the Colombia account. So it means that a young sales manager from this USA communication company, they would like to do business in Colombia. Okay, so they would like to sell their computer system to Colombian banks. Okay, now the sales manager, his name is Peter Knowles. The sales manager, Peter Knowles, was a young man with an excellent background in computers and US sales. He had been one of the original partners in this small communications company. So you can imagine that this young man, Peter Knowles, is very capable, right? He's very good at computers, and he even founded his company, this small but very successful company. Okay, so next. For his office in Chicago, Peter Knowles started to look for the right person to contact. He called the Colombia Association of Banks. The association coordinates bank business and encourages foreign investments. It also acts as a third party to introduce foreign contacts. Okay, so Colombia is in South America, right? Okay, and from Chicago, well, Chicago is far away from Colombia. So Peter Knowles has to find a contact in Colombia, and he needs to find someone to approach local bank. Yes. So how can he do that? when exploring a new market, normally we will find the business association, like here in Gambia, they have a Gambian Association of Banks. So this is association, this is an organization where introduce foreign investments to their country. So like in Taiwan, we have a similar kind of organization like 外贸协会, like 国贸局. So they help people in Taiwan to know foreign investors. They also help foreign investors to know Taiwan business. Okay, so Peter Knowles, he contacted this Gambia Association of Banks, and he tries to get help from this association. Okay, next, an agent of this association named Roberto Coronas as the key contact of the Gambia Bank for the account. The agent then suggested they all meet together in Gambia. Okay, so then this association recommends a person, Roberto Coronas, as a key contact. So the association said that why don't you, okay, Mr. Peter Knowles, you and our contact, Mr. Roberto Coronas, meet together in Gambia so you can talk. So this is the person association recommended to Peter Knowles. Peter Knowles, wanting to be certain that a trip to Gambia will be worthwhile, asked the agent for Coronas' phone number and called him immediately. He introduced himself to Coronas on the phone and began to explain how his company could develop the best computer system for the bank. But then Coronas suggested they meet each other in person to talk further. Okay, so the association of bank, right, suggested Peter Knowles meet this Mr. Coronas in person in Gambia. But Peter Coronas didn't want to do that in the very beginning. What did he want to do? He wanted to make sure that when he went to Gambia, he could complete the sales and the deal. So he would like to make phone calls first. He would like to talk to Peter Knowles on the phone. And so when he gets to Gambia, the ideal situation is that he could sign a contract with some banks. Okay, but the Coronas think this is a good way for communication. Apparently, in Gambia, this Mr. Roberto Coronas didn't think talking on the phone is a good way to know each other. So Coronas suggested they should meet. Okay, they should meet in person in Gambia and to talk further. Now, days later, okay, after several days, Peter Knowles fly to Gambia. In their first face-to-face meeting, Peter Knowles went with the agent to meet Roberto Coronas in person. After a brief introduction, Coronas suggested that the two men have dinner together that evening. Okay, so in the first meeting, Peter Knowles went to the Association of Banks, right, to see the agent, and the agent took Peter Knowles to meet Roberto Coronas. And then Roberto Coronas said that, so why don't we have a dinner together? All right, so after the working hours, they say have a dinner, okay, in nighttime. Then at the dinner, the sales manager, Peter, was ready to talk about business. But Coronas wanted to talk about general topics, such as business friends and Gambia's literary and cultural history instead. Okay, so this is a dinner, right? Dinner is set after working hours, after office hours. But for Peter Knowles, time is money. So he wanted to make a good use of his time. So in the dinner, he was ready to talk about business. He was ready to let Coronas know that how good his company was. And Well, but what did Corona think? Corona didn't want to talk about business right away. Corona wanted to talk about arts, culture, friendship, history, literature. Okay, so he wanted to talk about something else instead of business with Peter Nals in this dinner. So, in the end, Peter Nals did not make a good impression on Kronos. At the end of the evening, Kronos said, okay, let's stay in touch. But Kronos never contacted Peter Nals again. So, Peter Nals at last lost the important business contact. Without Roberto Kronos, it was not possible for him to approach any bank to get any business in Colombia. So why? What happened? Why this meeting was a failure? What happened? So what is your analysis? Think about these questions. Why did Kronos contact Nals? Why didn't Kronos contact Nals, Peter Nals later? What did Peter Nals do wrong in this initial contact? Was there any better way to deal with Mr. Kronos in this case if you were Peter Nals? Is there any better way to deal with Mr. Kronos in this case? Can you think about all these questions? There are more questions for your reflection. So before we analyze the case, now please try to answer these questions based on your understanding of Colombian culture, American culture, and Taiwanese culture. Okay, question 1. Is it more common to contact people and get information in person or on the phone? So for example, in Taiwanese culture in Taiwan, if you want to get information, which way is a more polite way? To get information face to face, or is it possible to get everything done on telephone? Second, what are some ways to get introduced to a company? Which way is most common or effective? So think about this in Taiwan. What do people prefer? So when you want to do business with a company that you didn't know before, what kind of practice is more common, or what kind of practice is preferred? Is it possible for people in Taiwan, you just make a phone call and then you can visit the company and then you can do business right away? Or normally people are introduced by someone else, and then through introduction, and we know each other, and then we talk about possibility for cooperation. Which is more popular in Taiwan? Now, next question. In making initial contacts, what is more important, the company or the person representing the company? Why? Okay, so do you trust a brand, a company more, or do you trust the person more? What do you think? So here, later we will analyze the case and we will answer these questions more or less. But here we can talk about the Taiwanese culture first, right? In Taiwanese culture, traditionally, what do people prefer? Normally, it's more polite that we are introduced by someone to a company or a person that we didn't know, right? Normally we do this in Taiwan. So people will trust our friends. So if you and I, both of us, we have a common friend, it's easier for us to build up a trustful relationship, right? So introduction, the third party introduction, apparently is quite important in our or in Taiwanese business culture. But remember, in some cultures, no, you don't need a third-party introduction to know someone. You can just approach a company, approach a stranger, and introduce yourself. Hello, I'm Cindy. Nice to meet you. So what do you do? And what am I doing? Oh, can we be friends? And then we can be friends. American culture is more like this, okay? But think about it. Does every culture like this? Maybe not, right? Okay, more questions. Number 4, how important are personal connections in business? Number 5, how much time spent on getting to know each other? Why? And number 6, can you use your knowledge of cultural dimensions to explain the differences between these national or business cultures? Okay, here we talk about relationship building. When doing business in some cultures, it takes time to build up a relationship first, because people prefer to do business with someone they know. So relationships are important. They need to make sure that, oh, this company, this person is a right person, right company to do business. So they will take time to know each other. But in all the cultures, relationships are not necessary for business. We do business based on terms and conditions. If you offer me better terms and conditions, I do business with you, no matter I knew you before or not. Okay? Alright, so there are 2 different kind of business cultures. Okay, and reflect the cultural dimension knowledge you have learned earlier. What kind of culture is this we call, and how can we analyze them?